My name is Daniel Dockin. Welcome to Module 0, Unit 5. In this unit, we'll focus on two other important invasive plants, Himalayan balsam and giant hogweed. Both species are highly invasive in the UK and can cause significant ecological impacts, but they are very different in appearance, biology, and the risks they present. We'll look at each species separately, going through their growth stages, from seedlings to full maturity, and highlight the key features that make them identifiable at different times of the year. For Himalayan balsam, we'll pay particular attention to its rapid growth, beautiful flower, and its distinctive seed pods, which can eject seeds several meters. For giant hogweed, we'll cover its massive size and appearance, but also the serious health and safety risks caused by its sap. By the end of this unit, you should feel confident in identifying both plants, knowing their seasonal traits, and being able to report them accurately during surveys. Himalayan balsam is an annual plant native to the Himalayan region. It was introduced to the UK in the 19th century as a garden ornamental plant, but it quickly escaped into the wild. It is one of the fastest growing invasive plants we deal with, capable of reaching 2 to 3 meters tall within a single season. Because it is an annual plant, the entire plant dies back each winter, but not before producing large numbers of seeds. The stems are hollow and can range from green to reddish in colour. The leaves are lance-shaped with serrated edges and are typically arranged in whorls of 3 to 5 around a stem. This arrangement is one of the clearest identification features of the species. From June through to October, Himalayan balsam produces a striking pink to purple helmet-shaped flower that is often compared to the shape of a policeman's helmet. Its most problematic trait is its explosive seed pods. These burst when touched, scattering seeds several meters away. Seeds are also easily carried by water, allowing the plant to spread rapidly along riverbanks and floodplains. Himalayan balsam begins its growth cycle in early spring, typically between March and April, when seedlings germinate from the previous year's seed bank. The first leaves are small and look like two ovals connected, soon to be replaced by the familiar lance-shaped leaves with serrated edges. At this stage, leaves are green, but may show a reddish tinge around the edges. The stems are thin, green and fleshy, and while seedlings look fragile, they very quickly establish themselves. Growth is rapid, often several centimeters per day once the conditions begin to warm up. Because Himalayan balsam produces large numbers of seeds, you'll often find young shoots appearing in dense clusters, particularly in damp or disturbed soils such as riverbanks, ditches and woodland edges. This early stage is an excellent opportunity for control because plants are still small and easily removed. By midsummer, Himalayan balsam has reached its full growth, standing 2 to 3 meters tall. The stems are hollow, fleshy, and can range in colour from green through to reddish tones, sometimes with darker streaks or patches. They can snap easily if bent, which is one way to distinguish them from woodier shrubs. As stated, the leaves are lance-shaped with sharp, serrated edges, and they grow in whorls from 3 to 5 around the stem. This whorl pattern is one of the clearest features to look for when identifying Himalayan balsam in the summer. From June through to October, the plant produces its distinctive flowers. These are pink to purple and helmet shaped. The flowers are large and very noticeable, especially when whole stands are in bloom, making this the easiest time of the year to confirm an identification. By this stage, Himalayan balsam often forms dense monocultural stands. These outcompete and shade out native vegetation, which is one of the reasons this species is so ecologically damaging. After flowering in late summer, Himalayan balsam produces long, narrow green seed pods, usually around 2 to 3 centimeters in length. These pods are extremely distinctive because of their explosive dispersal mechanism. When ripe, they burst on the slightest of touch, catapulting seeds away, sometimes as far as 7 meters. This is one of the most effective natural dispersal strategies among invasive plants in the UK. The seeds themselves are small, black or brown, and can also be spread much further when carried by rivers and streams. This is why Himalayan balsam is especially common along watercourses and floodplains. Each plant can produce over 800 seeds per year, which means even small stands have the potential to rapidly expand and colonize new ground in the following season. Seeds which have been dispersed can lay dormant within the soil for roughly 18 to 24 months. For surveyors, the presence of ripe seed pods is a clear late season identifier, but it's also a warning sign. Any disturbance to the plants at this stage risks spreading seeds further, so care should be taken. This seasonal summary shows you what to look for when identifying Himalayan balsam throughout the year. In spring, seedlings emerge in dense clusters with thin green stems and oval-shaped leaves. These leaves then transform into the traditional serrated lance-shaped leaves. By summer, the plant grows rapidly to its full height of 2 to 3 meters. Stems are hollow and fleshy, leaves are arranged in whorls of 3 to 5, and the distinctive pink to purple helmet-shaped flower begin to appear. In autumn, the flowers would have fully formed, and the seed pods mature and become highly explosive. At this stage, they can scatter seeds several meters. By winter, Himalayan balsam dies back completely, leaving no visible above ground growth. However, the seeds lie dormant in the soil, ready to germinate the following spring. Monitoring for this plant should be undertaken in late spring to early summer, and should consist of a minimum of 2 full growing seasons of no growth before remediation should be considered completed. Remember that Himalayan balsam is an annual plant. It disappears above ground each winter, but a seed bank ensures rapid regrowth the next year. Giant hogweed is one of the most notorious invasive plants in the UK because of the health risk it poses. It is native to the Caucasus Mountains and was introduced to Britain in the 19th century, once again as an ornamental plant. It is a biennial or short-lived perennial, meaning it grows as a rosette for 1 or more years before flowering, producing seed, and then dying. When mature, giant hogweed can reach heights of 3 to 5 meters. The stems are hollow, rigid, and typically marked with purple blotches, covered in stiff white hairs. The leaves are enormous, up to 1.5 meters wide, and deeply divided into jagged lobes, giving them a very distinctive appearance. When in flower, the plant produces large umbrella-shaped heads known as umbels. These can be up to 80 centimeters across and carry hundreds of small white flowers. Each plant can produce tens of thousands of seeds, which are easily spread by water, wind, or soil movement. The most important thing to remember about giant hogweed is its sap. It contains a chemical. When they come into contact with skin and is activated by sunlight, it can cause severe burns, blistering, and long-lasting scars. Because of this, extreme caution is required whenever identifying or managing this species. Giant hogweed seeds usually germinate in early spring, from March to May, although the exact timing depends on local conditions. These seeds can remain dormant in the soil for years, which explains why infestations often return unexpectedly. The seedlings have small, bright green leaves with jagged edges. As the plant establishes, it develops into what we call a rosette. A rosette is a low cluster of leaves that spread outwards, close to the ground, a bit like petals around the center of a flower. These rosettes typically form in late spring into early summer. By then, the leaves are large, rough to the touch, and deeply divided. In its first year, a giant hogweed rosette can already spread over a meter wide. The short stems are hairy and may show purple blotches, features that become more obvious as the plant matures. Unlike Himalayan balsam, giant hogweed doesn't finish its life cycle in a single year. Instead, it may remain in this rosette stage for 2 to 5 years, using that time to build up energy in its thick taproot. Once enough energy is stored, the plant will bolt and send up a tall flowering stem. This rosette stage is the best opportunity for early control before the plant produces thousands of seeds. In early summer, giant hogweed has the potential to leave the rosette stage and starts to grow upwards into its tall mature form. The plant can reach an impressive height of 3 to 5 meters, towering over people and surrounding vegetation. Its stems are hollow, rigid, and usually display purple blotches. They are also covered with stiff white hairs which contain the toxic sap that possess serious health risks. The leaves are enormous, up to 1.5 meters wide, and are deeply divided with sharp, jagged edges. When the plant is fully developed, these leaves form a thick canopy that blocks light and suppresses other plants beneath it. From June into July, giant hogweed produces its most striking feature: large umbrella-shaped flower heads called umbels. These can be up to 80 centimeters across, filled with hundreds of small white flowers. A single mature plant can generate thousands of seeds, which we'll look at in more detail on the next slide. The summer growth stage is the easiest time to identify giant hogweed in the field because of its sheer size and distinctive flowers. But it's also the time when the plant is at its most dangerous, due to the toxic sap in its stems and its leaves. Giant hogweed spreads entirely through seeds. A single mature plant can produce tens of thousands of seeds in a single season. These seeds are flat, oval, and often marked with brown lines. Seeds are mainly dispersed short distances by wind, carried downstream by rivers and streams, or moved accidentally in contaminated soil. Once they fall, around 95% of the seeds remain in the top 5 centimeters of soil. In dense stands, you might find 6,000 to 7,000 seeds per square meter, creating a large and persistent seed bank. Although many germinate in the first spring after winter, about 8% of seeds are found to survive in the soil for more than 1 year, and around 5% survive for 2 years. Whilst few survive beyond this, it is possible for a seed bank potentially to be active for over 5 years. This persistence means control efforts need to be long-term. Even when all visible plants are removed, seedlings can continue to appear for years afterwards if the seed bank isn't fully depleted. One of the main reasons giant hogweed is such a high-risk invasive plant is the danger its sap possesses. This sap contains veranocoumarins, a group of toxic chemicals. When the sap touches skin and is then exposed to sunlight or UV rays, it causes a reaction known as photodermatitis. This leads to severe blistering, painful burns, and long-lasting scars. In some cases, the skin can remain sensitive to sunlight for many years afterwards. The risk is not limited to contractors. Members of the public, children, pets, and livestock can all be harmed if they come into contact with the sap. For this reason, giant hogweed infestations often cause public concern and are treated as a serious health and safety issue. Because of the danger from the sap, you must never cut or trim giant hogweed. Doing so can release the toxic sap in fine droplets, making contact injuries far more likely. Anyone working near giant hogweed must wear full PPE. This typically includes waterproof gloves, coveralls, face and eye protection. A thorough risk assessment must always be carried out before any work begins, and safe methods of control, such as herbicide treatment by trained professionals, are usually the most appropriate method. This slide shows what to look for when identifying giant hogweed throughout the year. In spring, seedlings germinate as low rosettes with very large, jagged leaves covered in bristly hairs. At this stage, they can resemble parsnip or cow parsley, but they are noticeably bigger and more vigorous. Through summer, giant hogweed often stays in the rosette stage for several years while it builds energy in its taproot. When mature, plants bolt. They can reach 2 to 5 meters in height. The hollow stems are covered in bristly hairs with purple blotches, and they produce enormous umbrella-shaped flower heads that can be up to 80 centimeters across. In autumn, the seeds ripen. A single plant can produce 20,000 to 50,000 seeds, which are spread by water, gravity, soil, or wind movement. After seeding, the parent plant dies. In winter, all above ground growth dies back. The plant leaves no persistent stems or canes, but seeds remain dormant in the soil, viable for up to 5 years, and new rosettes may appear in the following spring. Because of this extended seed bank, sites must be monitored for at least 3 full growing seasons with no regrowth before eradication can be confirmed. Now that we've looked at how to identify Himalayan balsam and giant hogweed, let's briefly touch on how these species are controlled. Both are seeding plants, which means our number one priority is to stop them from producing seed. If seed is allowed to mature and enter the soil, it contributes to a persistent seed bank, making control and eradication much harder. Tackling the seed bank itself, ensuring no new seed is added and that existing seeds are managed over time, is critical for success. When it comes to Himalayan balsam, mechanical control is often very effective. Techniques such as pulling or cutting, sometimes known as balsam bashing, can work well, especially if carried out before the plant sets seed. This method is often practical on accessible ground and can be sustainable when managed correctly. Giant hogweed, however, is very different. While it is also a seeding plant, its sap poses a serious health risk. This means that techniques such as pull-in, strim-in should never really be used, as they can release the toxic sap and put people at risk. In these cases, safer options include the use of herbicides, often applied with long lances to keep operators at a safe distance. Importantly, such treatments must be carried out by a trained and competent professional with the correct protective equipment. Utilizing different management techniques introduces our key theme of integrated weed management, and we'll explore it again in Unit 8. This means choosing the most appropriate and sustainable method for each site and species. For example, mechanical control may be the right option for balsam in some areas, but for giant hogweed, chemical control is usually safer and the most effective approach. To recap Unit 5, you've learnt how to identify both Himalayan balsam and giant hogweed throughout their life cycles. But these are just two species out of many that cause problems across the UK. For Himalayan balsam, we covered seedlings, tall summer growth with whorled leaves and pink helmet-shaped flowers, and the distinctive, explosive seed pods that spread the plant so rapidly. For giant hogweed, we looked at its jagged seedlings, large rosettes, tall purple blotched stems with stiff hairs, massive leaves, umbrella-shaped flower heads, and prolific seed production. We also highlighted the major health risks posed by toxic sap. We've seen how both species spread almost entirely through seed, which makes preventing seed production and managing the seed bank the top priority for control. Finally, we touch again on the principle of integrated weed management. This means choosing the right method for the right plant and site, balancing safety, effectiveness, and sustainability. The next unit provides a gentle introduction to other invasive plants. More detailed training on these species are available through the PCA specialist courses, but this will help you understand the wider picture without losing focus on the core species we've covered in detail.